what do you think the value of a human being is? So many people that I work with, they think that they're worthless or they think that they're a failure, and they work so hard, but it's never enough. My name is Sean. I'm a mental health coach. I see 40 plus clients a week. I have a 98% satisfaction score from over 1,500 ratings. I just recently reached 1,500. I'm excited about that. And today we're going to talk about three things: the fallacy of good enough, why we diminish our value, and the conservation of value principle. Essentially, we're talking about how I think about value and how I help my clients to find more value in themselves. So first, let's talk about the fallacy of good enough, which is essentially that good enough is a mirage. It will always be one step out of your reach. You will never be able to achieve it no matter how much you work, no matter how much you do. And I can prove it to you. So there's two options here. The first option is if I ask you, what could you do that would make you good enough? What would the answer be? So option number one is you won't be able to come up with an answer. And there's this great Ani DeFranco lyric where she says, you know, it seems unfair that I'm living for something that I can't even define. And I think that the same principle applies here, that if you are chasing this idea of good enough, but you don't even know what good enough would be, it is an impossible goal to achieve. And people tell me like, oh, I'll know it when I get there, which leads perfectly into the second option, which is that maybe you do know what it is. Maybe an answer actually came into your head. In which case, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write it down, either on a piece of paper, in a document, on your phone, whatever. Write it down and keep it in a safe place. And then go out and achieve that thing. Go do that thing. And once you've done it, come back and look back at that document and ask yourself, do I feel good enough? And genuinely reflect on that. Genuinely reflect, do I feel good enough? And most of the time, what people I work with find is that the goalpost has shifted. They no longer feel good enough. Now it's like, well, sure, I did that, but now I need to do this. And there's a million very logical, very sound explanations for why now this isn't good enough. But then it happens over and over and over again. And the reason that this happens is because, again, good enough is a fallacy. It is a construction that we make up because it is actually a symptom. We are actually trying to compensate for the fact that we don't feel worthwhile as human beings deep down. And that is something that is taught to us. And so by starting to ask yourself about the roots of where does this feeling of not good enough actually come from, that is how we actually start to address you not feeling good enough. And once you start to find those roots, then you want to start to validate those feelings. And if you want more information on validation, check out this video. It'll pop up, I think, in this corner, or it'll be down in the description, depending on where you're watching this. That'll go into more detail about how validation works. Next, let's talk about why we diminish our own value. Like most things that our body and mind does, it is actually a way to try to help us. And I know that that sounds crazy because it's like, how could me thinking that I'm a failure, that I'm worthless, help me in any sort of way? Well, one of the most important jobs that our mind has is to make sense of the world around us. It is a huge part of what it does on a day-to-day, second-to-second basis. So when awful things happen to us, one way that our mind makes sense of them is to say, oh, these horrible, awful things are happening to me because I'm a horrible, awful person. That kind of makes sense. And I see this all the time with clients. It is so much easier to think that we are a horrible, awful person and therefore horrible, awful things happen to us than it is to think that we are a good, deserving person and horrible, awful things still happen to us. That just seems like a bad story. Like no one wants to accept that. And so it is actually a way that we make sense of the world around us. The last thing I want to talk about is the conservation of value principle. So in school, we're taught about the conservation of mass and energy, which is this idea that mass and energy are neither created nor destroyed, they just change form. So there is a finite amount of mass and energy in the universe, and it is just constantly changing form. So water is a great example of this, where there's a whole bunch of water in the ocean. The water gets evaporated up from the ocean. It becomes clouds. Those clouds over time then condense. They rain. Rain falls back down into the ocean. The sun shines and evaporates the water back up into clouds, and the cycle repeats. The same thing is true about value. Our value does not grow or diminish. It just changes over time, just like clouds and water and all that good stuff. We all serve a vital purpose in the sort of celestial human body that is the universe. And to say that one person is less valuable than another is sort of like saying a mosquito is less valuable than a bird. Like, sure, you may like one less because mosquitoes suck, but they both serve vital purposes in their ecosystems. Now, this can be a really hard thing to accept because we desperately want to devalue things that hurt us or cause us pain. And that is our ego working. Like, that is its job. By our ego devaluing things that hurt us, it helps to shield us from having to feel those feelings, which is why healing is so vitally important. Because when we heal, there is less need for the ego to protect us. And if you're curious about how I go about healing with people that I work with, this video that'll pop up in this corner here goes into detail about some of the process that I go through with clients. And the more that we heal, the more that we can not only see the inherent value in ourselves, but the inherent value in everyone around us. One of the parts of my work that feels the most sacred to me is seeing value in others when they can't yet see it in themselves. I serve as a mirror to show them how truly powerful they can be. If you'd like to do a quick check-in on your mental health, there's a free 2-minute quiz where you can just get some quick insights into areas that you might want to focus on. I'll leave a link down in the description. The reason I make this sort of stuff is to try to help as many people as I can, try to put out good mental health resources. And so if you know somebody that really struggles with feeling worthless, do me a favor and share this video with them so that they can get some help too. And finally, if you would like to see how clients that I work with go from feeling worthless to feeling empowered, this video is a case study of exactly how that happens. It'll either show up here or down in the description. Check it out. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye. So dang it. Okay, let me try again.